Super Smash Bros. Melee, a GameCube game released back in 2001, somehow in the year 2022 has one of the largest competitive fighting game communities alive today. For any video game that's taken seriously competitively, having an active player base for 5 years would be considered a great run. This is especially true in the fighting game genre, where a new sequel title in a fighting game series often completely overshadows its predecessor, regardless of how good that predecessor was. In the Smash Bros. Series, since its release over 2 decades ago, Melee has seen and survived 3 sequel Smash Bros. Titles: Brawl, 4, and Ultimate. The sequel Smash Bros. Titles all have more characters and better graphics than Melee. Taking all this into consideration, it's surprising that Melee isn't dead already. If the time Melee has been alive is any indication at all, then surely there must be something special about the game. But the question I want to help you answer is, should you play Melee? I've been playing this game competitively on and off since 2014, 8 years ago. Using my own experiences with the game, I want to give you the information you need to help decide for yourself whether Melee is a game that you would enjoy. Let's start with the positives first. In my opinion, the reason why Melee is such a great fighting game is because it gives its players a lot of fine and exact control over their character at every stage of play. Because of this, Melee is exceptionally engaging. One of the things that many people love most about Melee is its movement. There are many other amazing fighting games out there, but there isn't a fighting game I've ever played that has movement quite like Melee. On the ground, Melee has 2 universal techniques available to every character that allows players to control how they move at a pinpoint level. These 2 techniques are known as dash dancing and wave dashing. Dash dancing allows players to interrupt their dash with another dash in the opposite direction at almost any point during a dash's animation, with nearly no lag. Wave dashing allows players to slide to any specific position the player desires within a certain distance, and then regain all of their options immediately afterwards, again with minimal lag. By combining these 2 techniques in Melee, players can instantly shift their positioning at a moment's notice with a huge number of variations in how their movement is both timed and spaced, allowing players to finally and exactly control how they want to move for both offensive and defensive purposes. As a result, moving around in Melee feels extremely smooth and responsive. Speaking from experience, Melee's buttery smooth movement is a big reason why anyone who has learned how to dash dance and wave dash in Melee often finds themselves coming back to the game at some point, even after a long break from the game. The simple act of moving around in Melee on its own is very satisfying because of how much control you have over it. There are even other universal movement techniques available in Melee, including foxtrotting, run cancelling, pivoting, wave landing, shield stopping, and moonwalking, among others. Another aspect of Melee that gives its players more control is a game mechanic known as DI. DI stands for Directional Influence. It allows the player being comboed to often meaningfully influence the direction they get sent while being hit. In most fighting games, when you're being comboed you lose 100% control over your character until that combo ends. Being able to influence the direction your character gets hit to an extent even while being comboed is a mechanic that makes Melee naturally more engaging for its players. Using DI in Melee is straightforward and intuitive. When you're being hit, you can influence the direction your character gets sent by moving the control stick and the C stick in corresponding directions, both preemptively or during hit stun. By making good use of DI, a player being hit can often force their opponents to drop combos by making following up on those combos much more difficult than they would be otherwise without DI. If you look at any high-level match of Melee, DI has a huge impact on the outcome of any given match. At all times in Melee, even when you're being beaten up, players are still able to engage with the game in some way. There are rarely any moments in this game where there isn't something for its players to actively focus on. As a consequence of Melee's DI, the combo game in Melee is also incredibly dynamic. Because the person being comboed is able to actively influence the direction they get sent from being hit, this forces the player comboing to predict and react to their opponent's DI while adjusting accordingly if they want to continue their combo. DI makes comboing in Melee much more engaging than it would be otherwise because you can't repeatedly use the exact same combo over and over again for every single situation. This encourages improvisation for both the player comboing and the player getting comboed. During a combo in Melee, both players are still interacting on some level. The player comboing wants to anticipate their opponent's DI and make it so that their next follow-up move either continues the combo or kills their opponent. The player getting comboed, on the other hand, wants to anticipate the follow-up move their opponent will choose, and DI accordingly to make continuing or finishing that combo as difficult as possible so that they don't die. When combos happen in Melee, there are still lots of opportunities for decisions to be made, for both the player executing the combo and the player being comboed. Whether you're neutral, you're comboing your opponent, or you're getting comboed, constant fast-paced decision-making is often required at every stage of the game. Even though Melee is over 2 decades old, you might be surprised to find out that it actually has some of the best online netcode available in modern fighting games. That's thanks to Fizzy, who is the developer for Melee's online rollback netplay client, dubbed Slippy. Especially relevant in a post-COVID world, with Slippy it's easier than ever to quickly hop into a match with someone online. Even by modern standards, Melee has really good online play. Many recently released fighting games still don't have the online rollback netcode that Melee has, which to heavily simplify it is a form of netcode that limits the effects of latency during online play. For competitive fighting games where precision is extremely important, limiting the effects of latency is essential to having a solid online experience. Defying the expectations of being a ridiculously old game, thanks to Fizzy, Melee has online rollback netcode. Melee's online netplay is smooth enough that some of the best players in the world are able to play each other, even with thousands of miles separating them, without any complaints. Although to be fair, that's only possible if both players have good internet and are connected via Ethernet. But in many places in the world, anyone with a PC and good internet can find a Melee match in what's often less than 10 seconds, whenever they want to. In Melee's entire history, it's never been easier to get practice with other players than it is right now. Currently, Fizzy is working on an online competitive ranked mode for Melee and Slippy, so Melee's online functionality only looks to become even better in the future. Okay, so if you like fighting games, maybe you're actually interested in Melee at this point. But due to the game's over 20-year-old meta, Melee has developed a reputation for being an unapproachably difficult game to learn. Is it actually that hard to play? In my honest opinion, the difficulty in simply learning how to play Melee is largely overhyped. Anyone can learn how to play Melee if they're willing to put in the effort, at least barring serious health issues. And once you play the game enough, before you know it, you'll be able to do many of these techniques without even thinking about it. If you simply want to have fun with the game and play it with friends, because Melee is a fun game, learning the game's essential and basic techniques is probably less difficult than its reputation would lead you to believe. That said, if your hands start hurting while playing Melee, then yeah, please be mindful and rest your hands. You know, stretch your hands and take a break. If you play the game for like 3 hours straight without any breaks, then unsurprisingly, your hands might start to hurt. Building off my previous point that Melee is not an unapproachably difficult game to learn, there are tons of tools available today for new players to quickly improve at the game. There's Uncle Punch, a free training mode developed by the player of the same name, which hugely increases the efficiency of practicing many of Melee's essential techniques. And remember how before we were talking about Slippy, the online rollback netplay client that makes Melee's online play really smooth? Well, Slippy also has the functionality to automatically record all of your past online matches for you. This gives players interested in improving at the game the ability to easily review their matches, allowing them to immediately see what mistakes they made and what they can improve on. Furthermore, on YouTube, there are comprehensive Melee guides for beginners. Many of Melee's top players also freely and frequently share their insights into the game on their respective YouTube channels. There's even this website called Metafy where you can literally just buy Melee lessons with some of the best Melee players in the world. In the modern era of Melee, it's easier to get good at the game than it ever has been. If you like fighting games, that sums up why I think you should play Melee. Clearly, I think the game has a lot going for it. However, the purpose of this video is to give you all the information you need to decide whether Melee is right for you. Now I want to go over some of the reasons why you might not want to play Melee. Even though it's pretty clear at this point that I do like the game a lot, this video isn't an ad, and it's important for me to give you the whole picture. Previously, I talked about how engaging Melee was at all times, because of its precise movement, the DI system, and its dynamic combo system. Here's the flip side of that. One warning I have for potential Melee players is that as a consequence of being an engaging game with constant decision making, it can be extremely easy to lose track of time while playing Melee. So it's important to prioritize and manage your time well if you want to play it. If you don't think you're capable of managing your time responsibly while playing the game, and be honest with yourself, then it might not be the right game for you. That said, I think time management is a skill that anyone can learn. Set a timer or alarm when you play Melee to make sure you don't lose track of your time while playing it. Make sure you're able to finish the things you need to get done. Don't ignore whatever responsibilities you have or the goals you want to achieve outside of the game. The next reason why you might not want to play Melee only applies to people looking to take it super seriously competitively. While I don't think simply learning to play Melee is nearly as difficult as people make it out to be, if you do want to play the game competitively, Melee is a very brutal and unforgiving game. I won't be going into super specific detail because it would take forever, but the game won't coddle you. If you have any weak points at all in this game, those weak points will be brutally exposed at some point until you make an effort to fix them. If you want to improve, you're going to have to be willing to take your losses, learn from your mistakes, and try your best to improve on your weak points in the game. When you play Melee competitively, the best analogy I can make is that you should approach the game with the same mindset as someone would playing a game like Dark Souls. Do some of the things in the game feel unfair? Yeah, absolutely. Just like in Dark Souls, some of the things in Melee feel really awful to lose to. Nobody likes getting laser camped by Falco, getting hit by Marth's F-Smash, getting shine spiked at 0 by Fox, getting chain grabbed by Sheik, or getting hit by the 10th puff back air. That's just a small portion of the things you'll need to learn how to counter and play around. But even though Melee is an unforgiving game, it grants its players so much control and has so many countless different options that there's almost always something you could have done differently to get a different outcome. You can learn how to deal with Falco's lasers. You can learn how to crouch cancel and wave dash at a shield to beat Marth's F-Smash. You can learn how to not jump into Fox's shine predictably. You can learn to avoid getting grabbed by Sheik and improve your DI out of her throws. You can work on your movement and spacing to deal with Puff's back air. The tough pill to swallow with Melee is that when you fail, it's almost always your fault. The game gives you all the tools you need to succeed, but you need to learn how to apply them well, and it's not easy. But if you're willing to stick it out through the hardships and make the most out of your experiences with Melee competitively, that competition can help push you to become a better person. With that said, even though Melee is a game with a large competitive scene, it's not required to take the game seriously. That's not the only way to play Melee, and I hope I've properly explained why the game is fun, even if you don't want to be a giant tryhard and play the game all the time. I've taken plenty of breaks from the game myself, and just playing the game with friends for fun is a good time all on its own. Because at the end of the day, the core reason why Melee has survived this long to begin with is simply because it's a really fun game to play. So, should you play it? That's for you to decide, but thanks for watching.
Super Smash Brothers Melee!